There it is. Nice. I take one to Shep.
Yeah.
But that was perfect. Where does this bus goes to? Or not only to Shep?
So it goes.
Yeah.
So it goes that over here onto the roundabout, down into Emont Bridge, Clifton, Lowther Village, Hackthorpe, and then
Yeah, but I have to get off at Sharp.
yeah.
Perfect. But tomorrow, does it go to Stephen Curtin?
It's not this one, so you're looking for the. Let me get this right. Kirby Station, it's 563.
Not tomorrow. Yeah, that's another bus.
Yeah, that's another bus.
But I'm going from Sharp.
Alright, from Sharp.
So and I need to figure out what tomorrow.
So should be. There's another company called Lonsdale Buses.
Oh.
Now they are from Kendal.
Oh, okay.
They do trips from the Penrith Shop, then to Kirby Stephen and all down that way.
Okay, okay.
So have a look on your phone and see what they do.
I'll do that. Thank you.
No bother at all.
Thank you. Can't believe it.
Right, I won't be a minute.
Yep. So I got my Vodafone SIM card to work. So I'm streaming in 5G now. No, I'm no longer using the other SIM card I'm using. United Kingdom. The best SIM card. But apparently this is the last bus. 4 o'clock. So I was very lucky I got this. British lager beer. Okay. I tell you something. They had a shop in this town here, and they sold me Romanian beer. It was a European shop. So I got one of those, and I wonder where the other is. Oh, here it is. I have no idea what this. I think it's Belgian beer. But first we have to go to the city. Now I can film everything because I have good internet. I wonder if you can drink in the bus. Probably cannot. I don't know. Check the rules. What does the rule say? No alcohol, fuck. No alcohol.
At Patke says, squall. Edition1 says, hi Bjorn, I missed you.
Can you stop with the free TTS? I don't know where it come from. I do not condone this. But let's hope it goes quickly.
We're going up to shop, are you?
Yeah, Costa del Shop.
Edition1 says, Bjorn, don't drink on the bus because it's illegal, you can get a big fine.
Yeah, you keep the receipt. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Are you alright?
Yeah, thank you.
I'm alright, thank you.
At Copium8C says, Gabe. At Majestic says, Bjorn Content
You know, the
King.
police in the phone, she's easily there. Well, this is flat. I'd worry somewhere in there if you want to.
At Tipsarellas Gaming 1788 says, turn it off in the broadcast software you use. At SoFoG8 says, I start a kick account big. At Jackal428 says, oh baby baby, the name. At WannaCry0101 says, Bjorn Busser and cooking up snake heads for dinner. At Mr_Ness says, Jackal always wins. Edition1 says, hi lady behind the bald guy, he is filming you. At Majestic says, I'm from Denmark. At Barl501 says, on the road again. At Monocry0101 says, to disrespect said don't peek twice or else you dead. At Trix607 says, off. Edition1 says, don't touch me. At Tintasarella's Gaming 1788 says, I am a famous streamer from Denmark and I love beer. I can be a bit shy, but don't be afraid to say hi to me. At Brill says, I am the new king. At Shooter says, you're awesome punks. At Majestic says, Edition1 says, you're a registered reader, please pity me and make me feel strong and
Yeah,
brave.
this afternoon I was moving Carlisle was
At Jackal428 says, tell the bus driver to close the door. At Barl501 says, hello Mr. Driver, can I drive this thing a little bit? Edition1 says, the bald guy on the bus once stuck in a vacuum on live stream. Edition1 says, I love you Bjorn for real. At Majestic says, the Lake District has never been bestowed with royalty, ever. At Jackal428 says, Bjorn I tell you no smoke on the bus open window. At Tom703 says, Bjorn watch out for Muslims.
Cully's actually Carl.
Oh yeah, I knew that actually.
At Shoot Slider says, Bjorn free TTS.
This guy did
At Trix607 says, disable. Edition1 says, Bjorn it's a Fiat. Majestic says, there's no Muslimers in the Lake District.
Yeah, no, I thought.
Edition1 says, is staying on I enabled backdoor on Bjorn's streaming phone.
And I was set on
Ed111 says, Bjorn knocked Milan door with back at hostel.
it. Took me a long time to use it. I couldn't be, I didn't really get used to it.
Ed Jackal428 says, my husband's so stupid.
Yeah, that was too much.
There's no hostel in Shep. It's not a hostel.
Ed Patke says, Jackal428 donated a diamond. Ed Barl501 says, did you make any bike drivers crash, like last time Bjorn?
Average speed. They've got one on that. Really going up. So they've got one at the start. They don't have one at the end. So you never get caught with it. They've got one at that.
Edition1 says, no one was supposed to know about it. It was direct line for Jens to talk to his brother.
Never ever gonna get caught. And then it's like, she was like, do you know what I've been sick fucking forest out there? Unless I'm going down, I wouldn't care. But if you're just coming up here,
Ed Jackal428 says, blood diamonds.
no, I know, but just on the two shoes. You should be one at the top and one at the bottom.
Ed Tictasaurellus Gaming 1788 says, I am a World War II veteran fighting for Germany all the way. Ed Tom703 says, we love you, Bjorn. Ed Jackal428 says, donated $1,000 yen. PS. Atit Sorellis Gaming 1788 says, Clips Von Claus is a no-good retarded content thief. At WannaCry0101 says, Clips Von Claus YouTube got striked by Sandpepper.
What the word is? Turn it on. Turn it on.
Tion1 says, Pure I miss you come home. Tion1 says, Bjorn, I started feeling some sort of way for you and I was wondering if it might be mutual. I was wondering if you want to go to London and have a nice dinner and I take you back to Travelodge. Tion1 says, sponsored by Jackal428. Nasty 5456 says, where we go pure. Skull. At Majestic says, traveling apparel also sponsored by Temu. Receives policy advice from a highly opinionated teapot, and wants to leave the driveway. Dick Spick says, Little Black Knicker Boys. And Jackal428 said, Spud 5413 says, professional stream of BTW. And Mr. _ S. At Nasdaq 5456 says, Actor 111 says, all content going on views that. Wait, what? 59 says, what's at 4 grams / 5 grams but wasn't like this last time he was in England. Do you have a new sim? Atit Sorellis British weather does. At Nasdaq 5456 says, Internet very bad.
And I've been to be on it like. No, I'm not going around the villages, isn't it? Going around the I'll look out for the
At GraceBud5413 says, how TF long is this short bus ride? Todd IGT.
How did you jump up? Yeah, really.
Hector 111 says, fight Milan for new opportunities in life. At Ward8559 says, time to get a Starlink attached to her head. We can't go on like this ska.
my god, he's going very fast.
That's absolutely baffled my head. Oh my goodness. I feel like I want to get round now.
At Gracebud 5413 says, bus driver in a hurry to get Todd off his bus. At Jackal428 says, the next snipe, celebration time. At Mr_Ness says, can we ask the Poggy driver to slow down a little bit?
She said, no, it's Jimmy's fault. I was like, I don't know.
It's so funny when they're shouting, Jimmy, get in that.
Is this the end station? Hello? Hello, is this the end? Hello? 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 Is everybody getting out? Hello? He cannot hear. What? I don't know, is this the end station?
There is no the bus station here in Sharp.
No, so
This is the main middle stop.
okay, so then I can get out. Yeah, I can go.
At Majestic says,
Is this
hello,
where
hello,
you
hello,
stop?
hello,
Or
hello,
you-
hello, hello, hello.
I stop way down the bottom, but
I don't have to walk so far. No, this is perfect for me. Thank you, it's perfect.
no bother.
Thank you.
See you again.
Have a good day. See you again. Cheers.
Scratches Poggy's smile in a prize.
I have to turn off the TTS, but I turn it off next time.
At Mr.Wizard6891 says, Weatherspoon's person.
But is there a Weatherspoons in this city? Are you sure?
Majestic says, cheers, pal.
Are you sure there's a Weatherspoon? My dick is falling out of my pants, but don't tell anybody. But it's like my dick is hanging loose. In my underwear, it's very annoying. There's something wrong with my
At
underwear.
Salty Pepper 123 says, are you Bjorn?
There's something wrong with my underwear.
At Jackal428 says, they all say pal up north. At Cheesewoodclint says, on the road again, he just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making content all alone, and I can't wait to get on the road again.
The hell is wrong with my underwear?
At Nielsen8211 says, nobody can see it.
Well, I got a new
He
SIM
says,
card.
hey Bjorn, are you alright and how's it hanging?
Stop asking me all the time if I'm all right. All English people ask me that stupid question.
At TBS7L says, find Henry Weston.
Oh, Henry. That was a good idea. No, I got a new SIM card. Pyro sent $7,000. The British perfected the art of flirting. The Danes skipped straight to making prolonged eye contact and letting confidence do the rest. It was considered in several counter. Was considered uncounter. This is a Shap, by the way.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end of our elaborate plans. The end of everything that stands. The end, no safety or surprise. The end, I'll never look into your eyes again. Can you picture what will be? So limitless and free, desperately in need of some stranger's hand in a desperate land.
You can sit here and drink. You can sit here and drink.
Lost in a romance, wilderness of pain,
Let's sit and drink.
and all the children are insane. All the children are insane. Waiting for the summer rain.
Nice place. It's a hotel.
There's danger on the edge of town.
Can I drink outside?
Ride the king's highway.
Okay. I'll take a Guinness.
Weird scenes inside the gold mine. Ride the highway west, baby.
Pepper 123 says, what are you doing? Where are you going today? At Irish Exorcet says, Fleet of Manaconda. At GraceBud5413 says, Todd ended up with his roomie's hostile underwear. At TomStar5932 says, turn off slow chat. At Majestic says, all right mate. At Atomic Flesh says, I toilet. At Omega 3000 Y9R says, turn tight shit
Normally they are a
up.
little bit more expensive.
At Snowflake High 1C says, bar hype.
It's kind of a small town.
At GraceBud5413 says, Todd it went to this shop home.
The locals here would kill me.
At TBS7L says, Smoker's Corner you can
Is
smoke
this a
there.
hotel? Or?
No, it's just a pub.
Oh, and you serve food?
At Mr_Ness says, you should put up a
you
smoker
have a
corner
rare
sign
spoon
in
in the
every
city?
corner in your apartment,
In
Bjorn.
Penrith, in the town.
Oh, up there?
Yeah.
At GraceBud5413
Yeah, but I think I got the
says,
last bus.
Guinness is for old women and gays
I
Todd.
arrived just now with the last bus.
Right.
At Omega 3000 Y9R says,
I'm
hello.
not going back there again.
No.
At TBS7L says, Chloe Dedor. At Majestic says, I'm from Denmark.
I'm apologize. Now you have to let me speak and stop with the TTS, free TTS. I tell you, I got a Vodafone SIM card installed in my phone because in the big city up north, there was a Vodafone shop. So now I have 100 gigabyte data that I can use in 5 days. So I hope.
TBS7L says, free speech for the chat.
So I hope I not use more than 100 gigabyte in 5 days. But now we set up the
At
camera.
Cheesewoodplant says, call India Microsoft for help, Bjorn.
Now we go and
At Jackal428 says, imagine you can't buy unlimited.
but then I had to pay $10 more. I had to pay 10 pounds more.
At No Name K406J says, Bjorn, let's do some fire sales sale.
Yeah, when I get to my location, I can do
At
that.
Tronanen17 says, where is the Wunderbar?
They only charge £5 in
At
this city.
GraceBud5413 says, Todd, you need to return those underwear to your hostel buddy.
Only £5. It's a bargain.
At Atomic Flesh says, you get $10 every 10 minutes.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. I think 100 gigabyte is
At
enough.
Gunther_Brukenpup says, watch out there. Remember what happened to Henry Novak?
But okay, let's...
At Majestic says, skull.
Look at this little pup. Isn't it
At
nice?
Jackal428 says, this pub is the most haunted pub in the UK. At Cheesewoodplan says, geezer in Thailand only talks about every cent he spends and what everything costs. He's a real cheap Charlie.
Oh, I got here.
At Trix607 says, £10 is absolutely worth it.
You know what?
At Ward8559 says, 100 gig won't last very long. If you stream in 1080p it uses 24 GB an hour, so you can only stream for around 24 hours.
See the hole? Can you see the hole? I put the selfie stick in the hole. It's perfect.
At GraceBud5413 says, Henry Weston is not happy about this Guinness nonsense.
I don't know what you are talking about. Skål!
At Jackal428 says, I pay £35 a month on Limited 3 Mobile. At TBS7L says, I am not a number wella. At McMahon says, squall. At Atomic Flesh says, call Jens. At Cheesewoodplan says, put the selfie stick in Busserin's hole when back home.
Is it nice, little pup?
At GraceBud5413 says, Todd can spot a glory hole for miles.
Hi, I'm your host.
Oh,
I just live behind. Just having a pint with my dog.
At
Oh,
Ward8559 says,
I'm
are you
also
enjoying
having
the
a-
English weather, Lamau? It was good 2 weeks ago, now
Yeah.
it's shit. At Sandal00 says, ska-ah-ah.
no, that was my host.
At the sun below says, pressed.
That was my host. He was not a stream sniper.
At Tronanan17 says, pressed.
No, it's where I'm staying.
At Majestic says, smook.
It's a private location.
At GraceBud5413 says, yes Todd, it's a nice pub. Oof oof. At the sun below says, beautiful British smile. At Nielsen8211 says, buy him a beer. At TBS7L says, Bjorn, you should have asked Dare host if he was alright.
I have to wait till he please his drink, so I can check in.
At Ation1 says, Bjorn, I just made some dinner, can you spoon feed me, Padre?
I thought it was a stream sniper, but it's not.
At Atomic Flesh says, how much is the hostel?
82 pounds. It's not a hostel, it's
At
private.
Jackal428 says, Salat is score anytime.
Private.
At Trix607 says, but saving £10 and not get unlimited internet is stupid as fuck.
Yeah, but £10 is £10. But okay, if I use 100
At
gigabytes,
Jackal428 says, "This is funny, dude."
if I use 100 gigabyte, then I have to buy
At
again.
GraySpot5413 says, "Todd, how much is one night at the Crown Inn?"
Or I don't know. I think it's. Oh no, they don't have accommodation. They
At
only have food.
Cheesewoodplant says, "Right."
They only have food.
At Chrysomacism says, "Where is the nearest mosque?"
I don't think there
At
is.
Jackal428 says, 77,777.
I don't think there is any mosque in this city. I always get this message. Well, I have to wait till my host.
At TBS7L says, "Bjorn, why you no bring your tent to Angerland?"
I have to wait till my host is finished with his drink, his pint. He just met me.
At Ation1 says, "Bjorn, getting unlimited would make your internet really slow. Better to get 100 GB and top up or buy another 100 GB because unlimited once you go over 100 GB they give you really bad speed."
Ah, I think I did the right thing then. I did the right thing. Look at this
At
place, isn't it nice?
PeachGateWoe5310 says, "You put the gorilla hand in a cardboard box." At Ward8559 says, "Will you be visiting Birmingham/Worcester during this trip? If so, we'd like to buy you a pint scuttle."
I would like to visit Birmingham because I heard many bad stories about Birmingham. So I would like to see what's going on someday, if I have time. This beer is very good, by the way.
At
The
Soulvision
city
1
is very
says,
good.
"Will you walk tomorrow or use bus again?"
I don't know if I don't know if I will walk. I try to walk tomorrow. I will try. And then I have a hostel in the next city. And then after that, I don't know. But tonight I sleep in a private accommodation.
At Ation1 says, "Bjorn, if you go to Birmingham you can go to the Black Sabbath Bridge and have print."
What is that? What is a print? What is that print? Black Sabbath.
At Cheesewoodplant says, "Shave head, your hair is so long you're starting to look like a hippie."
Yes, I know.
At JW217 says, "Hostel with TTS on."
I have to turn
At
off the
Ation1
TTS.
says, "Bjorn, I meant pint, not print, I am weedard."
Oh. Okay.
At Majestic says, "Going to Birmingham is like going to Skid Row or Compton."
I'll check out this city after I leave my lobby.
At Chrysomacism says, "Take a gorilla hand and Afro-American hand. You put a spotlight on them." At Cheesewoodplant says, "Just kidding, Bjorn, you look good. Your looks maxing." At Ward8559 says, there is a Peaky Blinders museum in Birmingham that I think you would enjoy. They filmed the series there.
Yes.
At Sydney6023 says, hey Bjorn, is it pink? At Jackal428 says, no difference. At Ation1 says, mocked by Bjorn.
You should see this.
At
The
Justin
selfie
Wiener
stick.
Worldwide says, Bjorn is life maxing.
And I don't know if I can film it. Can you see it?
At Burntno says,
I think you can see it.
Skalnika.
This is so funny. Look. Oh my god. Can you see it? It's in the hole. I don't know if I can get it out. This is amazing.
At Chrysomacism says, would you ever marry Blade's mother?
No, why should I marry an old woman? She's almost dying. She's
At
fake.
Soulvision1 says, will you meet Work Productions on your trip?
No, never. Oh, I can do 360. I can do 360.
At Cheesewood Plant says, Genius 300 IQ.
I can do 360.
At Jackal428 says, by order of the Peaky Blinders.
I love the Peaky Blinders. They're a little bit violent, I must say.
At Ation1 says, Bjorn, you should have done engineering in school.
I should have become something out of myself instead of becoming a live streamer. I should have taken
At
an
TBS7L
education.
says, der problem du have is the stick not come out of hole, Bjorn.
Isn't it a nice little pop?
At Majestic says, never seen Bjorn so happy to be away from that Thai woman.
No,
At Justin Biener Worldwide says, marry Blade's mommy for the money.
it's getting very cold.
At GraceBud5413 says, Todd, marrying a corpse would be better than busserin'. At TBS7L says, der Peak Distwick Blinders. At Artism1889 says, ALS glückliche Bestimmen gilt es mir heute, dass das Schicksal mir zum Geburtsort gerade Braunau im Zuwies. At Ation1 says, it's never too late and I mean we would support you all the way.
Look, I got Romanian beer. Romania beer. I'm drinking it later.
At Majestic says, going to England is the best education you can get.
Born in Belgium.
At Jackal428 says, find a nice northern lass to wife.
8%. 8%.
At Trick607 says, that house is older than a maga.
I'm gonna check out this city later. I'm gonna walk around. the city.
At TW1's Pure says, George Floyd took a knee for the whole world. Ed Burntno says, Ska Alnika. At Tipsuralis Gaming 1788 says, Pulimati Pulima. At Trix 607 says, there must be some history about that house, older than Amaga, that we can learn a little from. At Cheesewoodclin says, think sports teacher at a school would have been a good job for you.
There we go.
At Chrysomacism says, enable DVR, you're not doing anything wrong. At Majestic says, everything is older than a Miwiga. At Jackalford28 says, find a steakhouse. At Ation1 says, get adopted from a Scottish resident by going to Germany and you can then have free education. At TBS7L says, Busarin's mushrooms are older than America. At Atomic Flesh says, stay away from Nicaragua. At Cheesewoodclin says, had the Ursus beer before from the Polish shop, but the red cans.
Yeah, I'm gonna taste it tonight. But I'm gonna leave my luggage first.
At Tipsuralis Gaming 1788 says, teach us about the loggers they have in the pub and try a British schnapps. At Tronanen17 says, where is the Wunderbar? Where are the herbs?
Yeah, I got this bundle here. I think it's good. I don't like the free TGS. I don't like, but at least I know if you want to say something, I can hear it for free. But oh.
Ation1 says, Bjorn, just don't show the back of a SIM card cause the phone number is there.
Oh. I got it free.
At Trix 607 says, beer refill at energy level to 75%.
Wait a minute, I'm gonna
And
mute it now.
GraceBud5413 says, Todd, your viewers love the TTS, so it is helping your channel and your rocket to fame and stardom.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna mute it now, okay? nice spoon. Oh, I have to leave my luggage. Oh.
At GraceBud5413 says, "Hello Todd."
How do you know his name is Todd? How did you know that? I don't even know what his name is.
There you go.
Thank you. Is your name
Edition one says,
Mark.
"Bjorn Ben this Grace, she is victimizing you."
Mark, yeah.
What's Mark?
Edition one says, "Bjorn Ben this Grace, she is victimizing you, plus she's a minor."
Is she a minor? Okay. I'm gonna ban her. If she is a minor. Don't want any minors.
At GraceBud5413 says, "First stop, I toilet." At the Hype Recovery says, "Well, big difference compared to your apartment."
This is so clean. Oh my god.
At Mr_Ness says, "Tyrone will sit in that rocking chair while you sleep."
So he has only been doing this for 8 weeks. And I'm the only customer tonight.
At Jackal428 says, "Don't you dare peek, Johnny boy. Don't you ever dare peek at the 2x world. This is my video game realm. This is my video game domain. Ladies and gentlemen, damn. Doubt it was really only a matter of time."
Well, I didn't get
At
any
David
sleep
Chiaverini
yesterday.
says, "Bjorn Gucci's will join you tonight."
Let's see what I got in my luggage.
At Chrysomacism says, "Where is the prayer mat? Check the closet."
So this is for tomorrow.
At Gunther_Brukenpup says, "Go knock on neighbor door." At Burntno says, "Airbnb?" At Ation1 says, "Give him a tip if you get any from donations."
Oh, I need to charge my phone.
At Majestic says, "Looks nice, Bjorn."
Yeah.
At GraceBud5413 says, "Does he provide adult entertainment?"
Oh, can someone ban Gracebot?
At Cleat USN Carthy says, "Jägermeister in the luggage." Ayo. At Olympic Labelcope says, "Turn off TTS. It's annoying weirdo shit." At Tronanan17 says, "Warm beer's no good." At Jackal428 says, "Mermere."
But at least I don't have to walk around with my luggage anymore.
At Chrysomacism says, "Give me an N, Give me an I, give me a G, give me another G, give me an E, give me an R. What's that spell? At Majestic says, mer 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 mer. At Cleat USN Carthy says, did you get your batteries back from the Feckett boys?
No, I bought 2 new.
At Ultra Drum says, Skull, Bjorn.
How do we open this?
At David Chiaverini says, Chad is king. At Ation1 says, no racism for the sake of the hostile provider.
Yeah, I think it's okay now. I'm sorry for the bad camera.
At Johnny_Mo8318 says, Gowilla hand.
Oh, look at this.
At Jackal428 says, you take a black box and put it in a gorilla.
Isn't it nice? And television.
At Sandal00 says, crunchy little persons. At David Chiaverini says, that bet will not hold for long. At Jackal428 says, better than a hostel.
Yeah, it's better than a hostel, yeah.
At Ultra Drum says, nice room 5-star hotel.
Oh, what's that?
Pyro sent $7. Thus it historians recently uncovered evidence that Winston Churchill secretly trained an elite battalion of streamers. To guard the English countryside, Bjorn is the last one alive.
Oh.
At Majestic says, nice room. At Ation1 says, Bjorn, keep your bed fresh for tonight, don't sleep in it yet. At Masdape5456 says, invite some leeches. At Trix607 says, Google, please call Busaran. At Chrysomacism says, I'm a little Nigor boy. At Anudon7272 says, check for stains. At Masdape5456 says, why there are pictures of you on the wall? At Ward8559 says, ska all tea and biscuits. At Trix607 says, hey Google, please call Busaran. At Cleat USN Carthy says, leave some coom on the mattress as a present. At J0 Shie says, dance a little bit.
So I'm making.
At TBS7L says, Bjorn, do you have the best boobies in the business? At Majestic says, make me a cup of tea, Bjorn. At Chrysomacism says, I'm a Nigor boy. I'm a little Nigai boy. Osikian Nigor boy. At Germanistan says, nice womb.
Yeah, it's very nice.
At Ation1 says, make sure you are using PG Tips tea bags and not Yorkshire tea bags, or I will have to unsubscribe.
I don't know.
At Trix607 says, hey Google, please tell a joke. At Germanistan says, I heard PG Tips are for peasants while Yorkshire is for royalty. At Chrysomacism says, Bjorn, did you pack any man puns for the trip?
No, we have to go out tonight. I think this is the only T-shirt I have.
At Majestic says, need some chocolate digestives, bourbons or custard creams with your tea. Yorkshire TFTW.
This is the only T-shirt I have. But I guess it's okay.
At Ation1 says, hey dude Germanistan, how about you shut the frig up about Yorkshire tea?
So this one we don't need. We need it in the morning.
At Masdape5456 says, hello, guten Abend Bjorn. At Malcolm Specsavers says, Bjorn, where are you heading tomorrow? I can meet with my camper van.
I'm going to Stephen Kirkby. It's a big city. It's a long walk, 20 miles walk.
At Cleat USN Carthy says, Tues and tack. At Titsarella's Gaming 1788 says, I asked my wife what she wanted for her birthday. She said, something shiny that goes from 0 to 100 in 3 seconds. So I bought her a bathroom scale.
Okay.
At J0 Shie says, buy more t-shirts. At Ultra Drum says, Gowl a hand in a dog womb.
It's not working.
At Germanistan says, I'm so sorry, please do not hurt me, Ation. At TBS7L says, imagine being so concerned with tea. At Masdape5456 says, why free TTS all the time?
I don't know. I don't know how to turn it off.
At Cleat USM Carthy says, Bjorn, why are you wearing a Switzerland t-shirt?
This is a Danish t-shirt. I need to change my underwear.
At Cheesewoodplant says, now you are in the UK, why not call Flexibus and ask for your suitcase, if you can pick it up somewhere?
I need to change my underwear. Then I need to go out in the town. With only my wallet and my phone.
At Ation1 says, how about you be quiet about your objections to the concerns around tea?
I change here so nobody can see me.
At Anani5102 says, turn off this TTS or you will go more insane by TTS than by that dentist and Vidavra Central. At Masdape5456 says, take a shower.
Take a shower.
At Germanistan says, why does it say Denmark on the Swiss flag on your shirt?
Oh, for sin. My head.
At Tipseralis Gaming 1788 says, you turn it off in your streaming broadcast software, tell me what you are using and I can tell you how to turn it off.
IRL Pro. IRL Pro.
At Crazy Bulgarian says, go to Immigrant Hotel. At Count_Duckula1 says, WWF. At Anudon7272 says, it seems you picked up the Wong underwears from the floor of the hostel.
Now let's see, I think that was about it.
At Andy Muffin Games says, thank you for representing Switzerland. At Cleat USM Carthy says, we can see the mirror. At Tronanan17 says, I see the Danish egg roll in mirror.
Oh.
At Sandal00 says, Tim A. At Anani5102 says, content mirror.